it's going to be 3 things. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is diet and figure. Number 2 is going to be the American dream. And number 3 is going to be self-worth based on success. Hey there, my handsome and pretty little Cobras, and welcome back to the Cobras Nest. For those of you who are new, my name is Mignon Cobra and I make minimalism videos. Today's minimalism video is going to be decluttering 3 social norms. So without further ado, let's just get to the video. Let's get it, let's go. Woo. Before we get started, as usual, if you wish to help out my channel, you can consider checking out my Patreon in the link down below. This helps me out immensely. I make monthly vlogs for my Patrons because, you know, they're closer fans to me, so I want to share that with them. And if you want to see the behind the scenes of my life, you could definitely check that out. And if you're not interested in that, that's cool. You can just help me out with the algorithm by giving this video a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about me decluttering 3 social norms that have actually helped and benefited my life immensely. These are things that I let go of slowly, bit by bit, in the past, I want to say 8 years of almost practicing minimalism. Wow, how time flies. I every year it just becomes one more number to how long I've been practicing minimalism. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is diet and figure. Number 2 is going to be the American dream. And number 3 is going to be self-worth based on success. So without further ado, let's just get into talking about the tips. Okay, number 1, diet and figure. This one is like super near to my heart, and I have a lot to say about it because it's one of the things that really messed me up for a really long time, and I can't really quite pinpoint where it started or how it began. And as I've grown older and done more research on this, just from like watching videos and learning and reading books on eating disorders and social culture of diet, I've just realized this is actually a much bigger thing. It's much bigger than me, and it's much bigger than the experience that I had. But just kind of talking about the process that I went through to actually let it go and where I'm at with that now. So for many years, I have been just, I think, like most regular women who grow up in a North American society, of just a practicer of diet culture. You know, watch your calories, work out more than you eat. Does that make any sense? Doesn't really make any sense. I feel like I've done a lot of the fad diets under the sun. So I have tried like a vegan diet, I've tried vegetarian diets, I've tried intermittent fasting of different types of windows, I've tried like OMAD, I've tried skipping breakfast, I've tried skipping dinner, I've calorie counted, I've calorie compensated. I even at some point started to get into the realm of binging because it just, you get to a point where there's just this fixation with food and it's just so unhealthy. And I treated these like a lifestyle, although I realize now they're more fads than anything. And if these are things that you do practice, I don't mean to offend. I'm just explaining my experience and then my thought process and where I'm at. So I did this and I lived this life, I think, for as long as I can remember. My earliest memory of having, you know, being aware that my body needed to be thinner, I think was grade 7. That's at least as far back as I can remember. And since then, I had just been on this treadmill of like, I gotta work out, I gotta be healthy, you know, almost orthorexia, to the point where I did pretty much develop some sort of anorexia. I was pretty underweight. I'm obviously not gonna share numbers because that's not the point of this. And I think in 2019, I began my recovery and I put on weight, I think about 35 pounds to be able to gain back my period. And I'm right now at a very healthy weight. I work out every once in a while just for my mental health and just physical state of being. And it's nowhere near as neurotic as it had been in the past. And at the core of it, I had to declutter the social notion that as a woman, my value is in my body, which is kind of sad when you think about it. I don't have any stats, I don't have any numbers, I'm not a scientist or a researcher in this field. I'm just kind of talking about where I got to a point where I realized I had to declutter this notion. For me, the turning point more or less was when I no longer had a period. I went 2 years without a period, and that's when I realized that as much as I wanted to be seen as a successful individual, you know, somebody worthwhile, somebody who's disciplined, somebody who has a great body, it was coming at the cost of my own health. And that's when I realized that for my own health, I was gonna have to let this go. And man, in my opinion, the backlash of not being, you know, physically attractive or being the physical ideal as society would put it. And that was really difficult for me because for somebody who had, I felt instilled in me this need to have to be that standard, letting it go and knowing that it was actually the healthy thing to do was a bit, it was difficult. It was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely tough. And I didn't really document it a lot during my channel because my channel is primarily about minimalism. I didn't feel like there was a place for that. But yeah, comment down below if that's something that you guys have recently decluttered. I am 30 now and I no longer feel that need to have to be what society tells me I have to be. I feel like I'm actually now in a position where I get to call the shots about who I am and how I live my life. And I feel like YouTube has definitely given me that platform and that strength to be able to do that, because I actually don't think that I would have been able to make some of these heavier decisions without feeling like I had the backing of a YouTube community. I just feel like as a YouTuber, as a content creator, I almost feel like I'm given the privilege to create my reality, which I feel like in some ways I might not have been able to if I didn't have YouTube. So I credit a lot of my freedom to YouTube, if that makes any sense. But yeah, that's one of the notions that I decluttered. I felt like it's cool. I don't have to be super physically fit to be a valid individual. Okay, number 2, the next thing that I decluttered was the American dream. So I grew up downtown in the projects, right at the edge of the projects and like the downtown core. So I grew up in both worlds. I also went to school in an upper class neighborhood. So I would commute from the downtown core to like the midtown, and there was no shortage. Like, this is before social media. There was no shortage of traditional media, and even just like my peers around me telling me what the American dream should be. You know, you should have a nice car and you should have a fancy degree and you need to be rocking luxury goods and designer goods and brand names. And I grew up with that stuff, and I just felt like that is all that there is to life. And to have exited that really truly did feel like having left the Matrix. If you guys have seen the Matrix, you know when like Neo wakes up from his pod and he just wakes up in a dystopia, and it's like everybody is like in their little, I don't know, battery operated tube, and you're just like, this is what the real world is like outside of the fantasy of the Matrix. It was pretty jarring, I would have to say, when I quit all of that, when I discovered minimalism and I realized that there's a whole world of people who live outside of that, you know, what I felt was regular society. I was like, wow. So for me, it was a massive upheaval of my mindset, not even just to say my lifestyle, but just like my overall general mindset of realizing that there's another way that I could live my life, and that's not in the pursuit of the American dream, was definitely life-changing. Knowing that I don't have to have my value tied to having a certain type of car or having a certain type of aesthetic or wearing certain types of brands. And I understand to say that a lot of these things is because those are byproducts of, you know, if you are successful in life, you can afford these luxuries, and if you are, you know, if you're a bum, you can't have them. I think that's also another thought process that I had to declutter. It was that like I can be successful and I don't have to showcase it with those things. I think that for me was also something that I struggled with. Letting these notions go took many years. When I started minimalism, I was like really drastic. I just mimicked what minimalists did, but I didn't fully internalize minimalistic beliefs until like many years had gone by and I practiced it for a long period of time. In the beginning, one of the tips for minimalism was like, don't have luxury bags. So I was like, I'm just gonna throw my luxury bags in the garbage. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was really young at the time. I think I was like 22 when I first started minimalism. Okay, maybe not that young, but I was quite radical and I really didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. I was just copying what I saw. I felt like I heard there were so many benefits to be had in the minimalism community. I just had to go for it. So I just started decluttering my purses. I don't know why I thought like somehow at the end of the road, that's what was going to happen. It actually was until like many years later when I internalized that my self-worth doesn't have to come from a bag, and I can have a bag and my self-worth doesn't come from it, that I realized that I was at the place that I was trying to reach by throwing my bags in the garbage. But such is the folly of youth. Okay, and the next thing that I ended up decluttering was this idea that my self-worth was based on my success. I'm not here saying that I don't need to be a successful individual. Oh, by no means. I still definitely chase success wholeheartedly, but I do it now from a place of amusement. Like I enjoy being productive. I enjoy doing, because there's a period of time in my minimalism I thought not doing something was true minimalism, you know, like woo way, and I think I took it too far. I definitely became a stone Buddha. I would just spend all my time meditating and doing nothing with my life, and I remember thinking like, oh god, is this all that there is to minimalism? I feel so dead inside. I really want to hustle, and I can't, because then I'm not a good minimalist. So don't get me wrong, I do still strive for success, but it's not driven by the same thing. Now it is driven in the same sense that children play games because it's fun. That's why I do it. I no longer do it from a sense of validation. I actually had decluttered a lot of notions that I used as external things to validate myself. One of them was I couldn't have curly hair, I couldn't have, a thicker body, I had to be tan, I couldn't have pale skin, I had to have thin eyebrows just like everybody else. There's a lot of things about me that were just hated by society, and I couldn't be myself. And minimalism gave me that shield to protect myself, to be able to create internal validation while I kind of grew a thicker skin. And now I'm able to walk around and not be affected by the things that society says, because I'm no longer tied to that. I cut off the umbilical cord. So I also realize that my success is not me. My success isn't my entirety, my self-worth. I realize that I have worth on my own. Like, even if I didn't pursue success, although I'll be honest, I'm still working on it. It's actually very difficult for me to feel like I'm worthwhile if I'm not pursuing success. So I'm still working on it. But I've definitely decluttered it a lot compared to before, where I felt like I was actually just trash if I wasn't successful. I had no value if I wasn't successful. We all have intrinsic value. It's just a matter of how much value we value ourselves and what we do with our time. It's a complicated and messy thing, but all I know is that I've been able to use my minimalism to help declutter some of these notions, where it's not just like black and white anymore. It's not just like I'm not successful, so I'm a loser. I've been able to use minimalism to dig deeper into these things, to kind of ask myself deeper questions like, okay, if I don't have success, what does that mean? Like, what does success mean? What does society think success is? What do I think success means to me? Like, what's the definition of it? Like, how do I define it? And those things would not have happened if I had not had the space to just like breathe. Like with minimalism, I got the luxury to like take that stuff all off and be like, F your rules, F society's expectations, let me see what I want out of my life. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that was any food for thought, because I think that, as I've mentioned before, the mental declutters are the best aspects of minimalism more than the physical declutters. Comment down below anything that you have decluttered in your journey, and I would love to read it. I'm sure everybody else in the comment section would love to see it as well. And thank you so much for having taken the time, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye. So yeah. Right? So I guess you would call like the down. I get to pretty overweight, sorry, and I have done practicing, yeah,